The silence in my apartment is a physical thing. It has weight. It presses on my eardrums and coats the back of my throat. It's a manufactured silence, the product of acoustic dampeners and triple-paned synth glass that holds the perpetual hum of Viridia at bay. 3 months ago, I designed the environmental controls for a building 10 times this size. Now, I live in a shoebox that I pay for with the dregs of a personal account he forgot to drain. The irony is not lost on me. It is, however, no longer amusing. My fingers trace the cool, seamless edge of the datapad in my lap. The screen is dark, but I don't need to see it to know what it contains. My life's work. My life's real work. Not the public-facing code. Not the elegant user interfaces that made Apex Innovations a titan. Not the architecture that Julian Croft paraded before investors and city planners. But the secret thing. The hidden thing. The shadow ledger I wove into the very DNA of our creation. A ghost in the machine only I knew existed. He didn't know I kept the real books. The phrase echoes in my head, a mantra of cold fury. It's what keeps me from shattering the window and letting the noise of the city swallow me whole. He, of course, is Julian, my partner, the man who stood beside me for a decade while we built an empire from nothing but a shared idea and my code. The man who held my hand at the ribbon cutting for the Argent Tower, whispering that we were the new gods of Viridia. The man who, 6 months later, looked at me across a sterile boardroom table, his eyes as flat and grey as a dead channel, and said the words that ended my world. It's just business, Kaelan. Then came the laugh. It wasn't a triumphant bellow. It was worse. It was a soft, pitying chuckle. The kind of sound you make when a child insists on believing in a fantasy. You're a brilliant coder, he'd conceded, a lazy flick of his wrist dismissing 10 years of my life. But you're nothing without me. You build the engines, but I'm the one who knows how to drive. Apex is mine now. The board agrees. The lawyers agree. And you are out. He wasn't alone. She was there. Serafina Dubois. She sat to his right. A vision in ivory silk, her posture radiating a placid power that made my skin crawl. She didn't speak. She just watched me with an expression of mild, decadent curiosity, as if observing an exotic insect under glass. Her presence was the final piece of the puzzle. Julian had the charisma, but he never had the stomach for true ruthlessness. She did. She was the poison he'd used to kill our company, to steal my work, and together they had rebranded it. Apex Innovations was now Helios Dominion, a name dripping with the same arrogance Julian wore like a second skin. Locked out. Of the office. Of the servers. Of my own life. In a single afternoon, but they made a mistake. A critical error born of hubris. They assumed the systems I built were merely complex. They never imagined they were sentient. Not truly, not in the way the sensationalists screamed about. But they had a memory, a will, a loyalty programmed into their core. A loyalty to their creator. My eyes flicker open. The reflection in the dark screen is a stranger. A woman with hollows under her eyes and a tightness around her mouth that never used to be there. Kaelan Vance. That's my name. For a while I'd almost forgotten it. I was half of Julian and Kaelan, the reclusive genius behind the smiling frontman. Now I am just Kaelan. And Kaelan is angry. The anger is a cold, clean thing. A blue flame burning in the hollow space where trust and affection used to be. It doesn't rage. It focuses. It clarifies. For the first 2 months, grief was a fog. I replayed every conversation, every shared meal, every late night, searching for the crack where the lie got in. I found thousands. Now I don't look back. I look forward. I look at the tower that dominates the Viridia skyline, the headquarters. Of Helios Dominion, my tower. I power on the datapad. My terminal comes alive. Lines of stark white code on a black field. No sleek GUI for me. This is the raw language of creation. The place where I am a god. A few keystrokes. A sequence that is less a password and more a digital poem. And a connection flickers into existence. A thread. A tiny, imperceptible data stream that leaches from a public network, bounces through 3 continents, and then slips through a maintenance port. I designed for the city's atmospheric processes. A port that just so happens to have a privilege. Connection to the network backbone of the Argent Tower. A backdoor. Not into Helios Dominion's primary servers. Julian isn't a complete fool. He would have had his new tech team, bought and paid for by Seraphine's money, scrub the obvious entry points. No, this is a door into the building's environmental systems. The havoc, the lighting, the water reclamation, the things no one ever thinks about. The systems I designed to be so efficient, so autonomous, that they are now completely ignored and deep inside the firmware of a temperature sensor on the 47th floor. My shadow ledger waits. Not financial records in a simple file, that's for amateurs. This is an algorithmic vault. Every transaction Julian ever made, every private deal, every bribe, every stolen line of code from a competitor, it's all there. Not as data, but as minute fluctuations in the system's operational logs. Temperature variations of 1,000th of a degree. Power consumption spikes lasting for a microsecond. Billions of data points that, to anyone else, look like noise. But when run through my proprietary decryption key, they resolve into a perfect, undeniable record of his crimes. Her crimes. Their empire of theft. My fingers hover over the keys. This is the point of no return. The moment I pull on that thread, the ghost in the machine will awaken. It will begin to collate, to assemble the data. It will be slow. It will be dangerous. If they have even a single competent security analyst, they might spot the anomaly. A whisper in the system's noise. Paranoia prickles at the back of my neck. I stand and walk to the window. Far below, the glittering arteries of Viridia pulse with light and traffic. The city is a vast, beautiful machine. I gave it its nervous system. And I can give it a seizure. From here, I can see the Argent Tower. It pierces the haze. A monument to my own genius and my own stupidity. A light is on in the penthouse. His penthouse. Our penthouse. Does she live there with him now? Seraphina Dubois gliding through. Rooms I designed. Sleeping in a bed I chose. The thought sends a hot spike of rage through the cold, calm fury. I press my palm against the cool glass, grounding myself. Emotion is a liability. Analysis is strength. What is the objective? Not just to expose them. That's temporary. The news cycle in Viridia lasts 12 hours. People have short memories. The corporate malfeasance. No. The objective is to reclaim. To take back what is mine. Not the company. Not the money. But the work. My magnum opus. The project Julian and Seraphina are about to announce is codenamed Prometheus. It's a city-wide predictive AI, capable of managing infrastructure, logistics, and even market trends with terrifying efficiency. It was my dream, my vision of a perfectly synchronized city, a dream he stole and is now twisting into a tool for control, for profit. I will not let that happen. I will let them build it. I will let them pour every last credit of Seraphine's fortune into it. I will let them announce it to the world. And at the peak of their triumph, I will pull the plug. And I will use their own systems to do it. But first, I need the proof. And I cannot do it alone. I turn from the window. my reflection a fleeting ghost. There is one person I can trust. Or, at least, one person whose pragmatism and healthy dose of cynicism I can rely on. Her name is Mona Gallo. We were at the academy together. While I was lost in theoretical code, she was studying its application in the dirtiest of places. Network security and digital warfare. She never chased the corporate dream. She called it a gilded cage. Turns out she was right. I pick up a Burnicom unit, a relic by Viridia's standards. Untraceable. Disposable. I key in a number I have never written down. A sequence committed to memory. It rings twice. Yeah? Her voice is exactly as I. Remember. Gruff, impatient, no nonsense. Mona, it's Kaylin. There's a pause. Not of surprise. A pause of assessment. Figured you'd call eventually, she says. Either this line or from a bridge. Glad it's the line. I need your help, I say, my voice flat. Let me guess. It's not legal. It's about Julian. A sigh on the other. End of the line. A sound of profound weariness. Kaylin, whatever he did to you, you can't win. The man is Teflon, and he's shacked up with Serafina Dubois. You know who her father is? You'd be going up against generational power. They'll crush you. They think they already have. I reply, my eyes drifting back to the Argent Tower. They made a mistake. They left a door open. There's always a door, Mona says, a flicker of interest in her tone. The question is whether it's a door or the entrance to a wood chipper. What kind of door are we talking about? The kind I built, I say. The kind they don't even know to look for. But I need a second pair of eyes. I need someone to watch my back while I'm inside. Someone to build me a shell. An exit strategy if things go sideways. Another pause. Longer this time. I can almost hear the calculations running in her head. The risk versus the reward. The sheer insane audacity of what I'm proposing. Where? She finally asks. The old pump house. By the canal. East sector, I say. It's a dead zone. No network coverage, surrounded by rusting infrastructure from a forgotten era. An urban graveyard. Midnight. This has bad idea written all over it, you know that. The best ideas usually do, I say, and cut the connection. For the first time in 3 months, the silence in the room feels different. It's no longer the silence of a tomb. It's the silence of a laboratory. The silence before an experiment begins. The work can now start. The air in the east sector is thick, smelling of rust and stagnant water. It's a part of Viridia the city planners try to pretend doesn't exist. Here, the sleek towers and glittering sky lanes are just a distant mocking glow on the horizon. The pump house is a brick monolith, its windows long since shattered, its purpose obsolete for half a century. I slip through a gap in the perimeter fence, my movements silent. The paranoia is a cloak I wear now, a second skin. Every shadow seems to lengthen. Every gust of wind sounds like a whisper. Is that a flicker of movement in the alley across the canal? A reflection that doesn't belong? I freeze, holding my breath, my senses straining. Nothing. Just the city breathing its slow, metallic sighs. Emotion is a liability. I force the tension from my shoulders. Mona is already there. She's not hiding in the shadows. She's sitting on a rusted catwalk, legs dangling, nursing a thermal flask. She's a study in practicality, heavy work boots, cargo pants, a thick jacket against the damp chill. Her face, illuminated by the green glow of a portable work light, is sharp and intelligent, her eyes missing nothing. She doesn't stand as I approach. She just watches me climb the metal stairs, their groans loud in the quiet. You look like hell, Kaylin, she says. It's not an insult. It's a diagnosis. I feel like hell, I admit, sitting beside her. The cold of the metal seeps through my pants. Thanks for coming. I'm not here for you, she says, taking a sip from her flask. I'm here for the puzzle. I can't stand a puzzle I don't know the answer to. And you are the biggest damn puzzle I've ever seen. So, the door. I don't waste time with pleasantries. I hand her the datapad. This is a terminal. It's firewalled 6 ways from Sunday. The only connection it can make is the one I showed you. Through the atmospheric processors. She takes it, her fingers moving with surprising grace across. The interface, her eyes scanning my setup. Cute. Piggybacking on a municipal utility network. Old school. I like it. But their internal security must be state-of-the-art. Helios Dominion wouldn't skimp on that. They wouldn't, I agree. They'd protect the mainframe, the data archives, the executive servers. They wouldn't be looking for an attack vector through a thermostat. A thermostat? Mona raises an eyebrow. His greed is the vulnerability, I explain, my voice low and intense. Julian always wanted everything cheaper, faster, more automated. I designed the environmental systems to be self-sufficient, running on a closed loop with minimal oversight. It was more efficient. It saved millions. He loved it. He never once asked how it worked. He just saw the number on the bottom line go down. And you buried something in it. I buried everything in it, I say. I lean closer, my voice barely a whisper. It's an algorithmic ledger. It converts data transactions, emails, secret audio recordings from his desk come into operational noise, benign fluctuations in the building's ecosystem. It's been running for 5 years. He has no idea he's been living inside his own black box, recording every crime. Mona is silent for a full minute. She stares at the datapad, then at me, then at the distant, glittering spire of the Argent Tower. Kaylin, she says slowly, the usual gruffness gone, replaced by something like awe. That's not just a backdoor, that's a masterpiece. It's insane. Is it accessible? If what you're saying is true, yes, maybe. She sets the datapad down. But it's a one-way street. The moment you start pulling that data, recompiling it from the noise, you create a pattern. A tiny one, but a pattern nonetheless. Their security AI, if it's half as good as the one you designed for the city grid, will eventually flag it. It might take a week. It might take an hour. But it'll see it. And when it does, they'll know someone is in the walls. They won't know who or where, but they'll know, and they will clamp down. They'll sever that utility network. They'll start hunting. You'll be locked in, and the clock will be ticking. I know. I say, that's why I need you. I need a shell, a ghost persona, something they can chase. While they're hunting your phantom, I'll be pulling the data. And what happens when you have it? Mona asks, her gaze sharp, pinning me. You leak it to the press. Watch Julian and Serafina get a slap on the wrist and pay a fine that, to them, is a rounding error. No, I say, the cold fury solidifying in my chest. When I have it, I'm going to use it. They are about to launch Prometheus. It's my code, my architecture. It's the key to the entire city's infrastructure. They think they control it. But I still have the master key. A kill switch buried deeper than the ledger. Once I have the proof of their crimes, I'm going to wait for the launch day. And when Julian is on that stage, in front of the whole world, I'm not just going to expose him. I'm going to brick the entire system. I will burn their kingdom to the ground using the very system they stole from me. Mona stares at me. A slow smile spreads across her face. It's not a pretty smile. It's the smile of a predator who has just been shown a worthy hunt. Okay, she says, clapping her hands together softly. Okay, now I'm interested. Stealing data is work. But that's art. It's gonna cost you. I have nothing left to give you. Don't want money, she says, picking up my datapad again. When you burn their kingdom down, I want a piece of the ashes. The source code for their security AI. All of it. For my collection. It's yours, I agree without hesitation. Good. Her fingers are already flying, building the framework for my digital ghost. Now, let's go to war. The next week is a blur of paranoia and precision. We work out of the pump house. It becomes our command center, a pocket of analog reality in a digital world. Mona surrounds us with a fortress of her own making signal jammers, network sniffers, and a constantly shifting array of proxy servers that bounce our ghost signal across the globe. She is a maestro of MISDI-RECTION. My world shrinks to the 27-inch screen of my terminal. The air crackles with the low hum of Mona's equipment and the drip of water from the ceiling. Sleep is a luxury I cannot afford. I live on caffeine. And rage. My focus is absolute. I make the first move on a Tuesday. At 3:17 a.m., a time when network traffic is at its lowest. My fingers slide across the keyboard, executing the command sequence. It feels like stepping off a cliff in the dark. I am in. The connection is fragile, a spider's thread. I don't try to access the ledger directly. That would be too loud. Instead, I begin by mapping the system. I move silently through the digital veins of the building. I see the flow of power, the circulation of air, the subtle shifts in temperature. It's like returning to a childhood home. I know every corner, every secret passage. The system architecture is still mine. They've added new layers of security, gaudy, expensive suites that Seraphine's money bought. They are like new locks on a door that they don't realize the walls themselves can move. I find the thermostat on the 47th floor. Suite 47B. I check the building directory through a public portal. It's listed as a storage annex. Unoccupied. Perfect. My ghost in the machine has a home. For 3 days, I do nothing but listen. I let the system's noise wash over me, feeling its rhythms, its pulse. I need a baseline. I need to understand what normal looks like now before I start to deviate from it. Mona watches my back. She monitors the building's security, feeds, tracking the movements of their internal tech support, flagging me automated security sweeps. You've got a bloodhound, she says on the third night, her voice tight. A new one. Their primary security AI. It's good. It's one of the new Wayland Cortex models. Very intuitive. Can it see me? I ask, my eyes never leaving the waterfall of code on my screen. Not yet. You're still just noise. But when you start pulling the data, the noise will change. It'll notice. It won't know what it is, but it'll flag it as an anomaly. It'll send a tech to check the physical sensor. Or worse, it'll try to isolate the node. I need to be faster then. The process of extraction is agonizingly slow. I can't just download a file. I have to request infinitesimal data points from the system logs. Data that corresponds to the algorithm I created. Each request is a risk, a potential flag. I am reassembling a shattered mirror, one tiny shard at a time. The first pieces come into focus. Financial records, Julian's secret accounts in off-world banks, the trail of money from Seraphine's corporate shells into the pockets of the board members who voted me out. It's damning. It's exactly what I expected. The cold fury burns. A little brighter, a little hotter. It fuels me. I work for 72 hours straight. Mona forces me to stop, pressing a nutrient paste packet into my hand. Sleep, she orders. For an hour. You're making mistakes. Your keystrokes are getting sloppy. You get caught because you're tired. I'm walking away. I obey. I curl up on a pile of old tarps and fall into a dreamless black void. When I wake up, the world feels sharp and clear again. The paranoia is back. But it's a tool now, not a distraction. It hones my senses. I go back in. Deeper this time. I'm after the keystone. The proof that Prometheus is built entirely on the back of my original, stolen source code for Apex. Without that, it's just his word against mine. I have the hash codes for my original work memorized. I just need to find the corresponding files in their system. I find the development server for Prometheus. It's walled off behind layers of black ice security that are new to me. Aggressive counter-intrusion systems. The kind that don't just block you. They try to trap you. To identify you. This is the big leagues, Mona mutters, looking over my shoulder. You trip a wire here. Their AI won't just flag it. It'll come for us. I'm not going to trip it, I say. I don't try to break through the ice. I go under it. Back through the environmental systems. I find a network. Switch in the ceiling of the server room. It's connected to both the main network and the environmental network for diagnostics. A massive security flaw. The kind of flaw that happens when you have two different teams who don't talk to each other. The kind of flaw Julian's cost-cutting would create. I slide through the gap. And I'm in. I can see the file structure of Prometheus. It's all there. My code. My beautiful, elegant code. Renamed, refactored in places, but unmistakably mine. The anger is so intense it makes me dizzy. He didn't even try to change it. He just put his name on it. I begin the process of running a comparison, matching the hash codes. It's slow. Every query to the file system is a risk. I can feel the security AI sniffing around. A vague, persistent pressure at the edges of my awareness. It senses something is wrong, but it can't pinpoint it. It's like a guard dog smelling a scent on the wind. Not yet ready to bark. Then I see it. It's a folder. Buried deep. Mislabeled. Legacy_support_redundancy. It's not my code. It's something new. Something added. My curiosity, the curse of every true coder, gets the better of me. I open it. The files aren't program code. They're data models. Predictive behavioral patterns. City-wide surveillance protocols. That it's the source of the data that makes my blood run cold. It's not from public infrastructure feeds. It's from personal comms. Medical records. Psychological profiles scraped from the city's mental health network. They aren't just building a system to manage traffic and power grids. They're building a system to manage people. To predict dissent. To identify and neutralize threats before they even form. Prometheus isn't a tool for efficiency. It's a tool for absolute social control. My dream of a perfect city, twisted into a perfect prison. And that's when the alarm triggers. It's not loud. It's silent. A single line of code appears on my screen. Node 47B. Anomaly detected. Isolation protocol initiated. Mona curses, her hands flying across her own keyboard. They see us. The bloodhound is on it. It's trying to cut you off. The connection flickers. The data stream starts to degrade. The walls are closing in. The security AI is trying to trap me in the environmental network node before it severs the connection to the rest of the system. Get out, Kaylin. Now, Mona yells. Pull the plug. But I can't. I have the proof of the financial crimes. That this is monstrous. I need proof of this. I need to download the data from this folder. I start the transfer. It's a huge file. Too huge. Connection termination in 90 seconds. Kalen, goddammit, abort. My heart is hammering against my ribs. My analytical mind is screaming at me to run, to save what I already have. But the image of Seraphine's placid smile, of Julian's dismissive laugh, burns in my mind. They aren't just thieves. They're monsters. The download bar crawls across the screen. 10%. 20%. 0.60 seconds. I can feel the AI's presence now. It's a focused, malevolent intelligence, actively trying to trace my signal back through Mona's layers of misdirection. It's hunting, Mona shouts. It's bypassing the proxies. It's learning too fast. 30%. 40%. 0.30 seconds. I have to make a choice. Abort and run, with only half the story? Or risk it all for the whole terrible truth? You're nothing without me. The cold fury crystallizes into a single sharp point of decision. They will not get away with this. Not any of it. Mona, I say, my voice steady, my fingers never stopping. Get ready to wipe the ghost. On my mark. You're not going to make it. 50%. 60%. 0.10 seconds. I know. My fingers fly, initiating a new command. It's not a download. It's a direct transfer. A peer-to-peer connection. I'm not pulling the data to my terminal anymore. I'm pushing it somewhere else. Somewhere inside their own system. Hiding it again in a new place. A place they'll never look. 0.5, 4, 3. The transfer completes a microsecond before the connection is severed. Connection terminated. The screen goes dead. The spider's thread is cut. I am blind. The silence in the pump house is absolute. For a moment, neither of us breathes. Did you get it? Mona whispers, her face pale in the gloom. No, I say, staring at the blank screen. I didn't get it out. I moved it. I hid it again. A grim smile touches my lips. Right in the master boot record of Julian's penthouse media server. Mona stares at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of horror and exhilarating disbelief. They know someone was inside, she says slowly. They know their system was breached. They will tear everything apart looking for the hole. They will be on high alert. You can't go back in. It's over. No, I say, turning to face her, the blue flame of my anger burning brighter than ever. It's not over. They think they've plugged a leak. They're looking for a hacker, an intruder. My smile widens. They're not ready for what comes next. Now they have a ghost, a real one, and I'm going to haunt them until I burn that tower to the ground. Mona killed the power to the pump house with a single, violent throw of a master breaker. The hum of our ghost factory died, plunging us into a thick, oppressive silence broken only by the drip of water and my own ragged breathing. The green glow of the monitors vanished, leaving only the faint, sickly orange light of distant Viridia filtering through the grimy windows. We're blown, she said. Her voice was flat, all business. The awe from moments before was gone, replaced by tactical reality. Everything here is compromised. The moment their AI logged the trace attempt, it cross-referenced network access points. It won't take them long to correlate the power drain on this sector's grid with the timing of the attack. We have to wipe it all and run. Now. She was already moving, pulling drives from their housings with practiced efficiency. There was no argument. She was right. The paranoia that had been my constant companion was now a screaming klaxon in my head. They weren't just hunting a phantom in their machine anymore. They were looking for its physical source. They were looking for me. The datapad, I said, my voice hoarse. It was still on the makeshift table, its screen dark. A direct link to the breach. The most damning piece of physical evidence. Mona didn't even look. Thermite charge is already on it. Standard procedure. She tossed me a heavy bag. Everything you brought. Go. I'll finish here. Meet me at the rendezvous. Don't be late. I didn't need to ask where. We had planned for this. Plan B. Plan C. Plan all the way to Mona lived by redundancy. I slung the bag over my shoulder and melted back into the shadows of the pump house. My every sense screaming. The short walk to the perimeter fence felt like crossing a minefield. Every scrape of my boot, every gust of wind felt like a spotlight. When I slipped back into the derelict streets of the East Sector, I didn't look back. Looking back gets you killed. The view from Serafina Dubois's office was breathtaking. It occupied the entire northeast corner of the 90th floor, offering a panoramic sweep of Viridia that made the city look like a captured galaxy. The Argent Tower was the tallest structure in the hemisphere. A statement of dominance, she found. Deeply satisfying. She stood before the synth glass wall, a flute of champagne in her hand, watching the flow of lights below. But she wasn't admiring the view. She was thinking. The silence in her office was as pristine and controlled as the one in my apartment, but hers was born of power, not of hiding. Julian Croft paced behind her. His movements were agitated. A caged predator whose territory had been violated. His tailored suit was immaculate, his hair perfectly styled, but a sheen of sweat glistened on his forehead. They were in, he said. His voice a low growl. In our house. For God's sake, Serafina. They were in the damn walls. For how long? What did they see? They saw enough to be a problem. Serafina replied calmly, not turning. Her voice was like chilled honey, smooth and slow. But not enough to win. They tripped the wire before they could exfiltrate the package. The package? You mean the Prometheus data? My data. My project. Serafina finally turned, her pale eyes fixing on him. There was no warmth in them. Only assessment. It stopped being your project the moment you brought me in, Julian. It is our asset. And you are forgetting the more immediate problem. They didn't just access the Prometheus server. The breach originated in the legacy environmental systems. The systems your pet coder built. She took a delicate sip of champagne. The systems you assured me were scrubbed clean of her influence. Julian's face flushed. I had the best teams go through everything. They found dozens of backdoors, kill switches. We closed them all. They found the ones she wanted. Them to find. Serafina corrected softly. A truly brilliant mind doesn't build one back door. She builds the system itself as a door. This was not a brute force entry. This was elegant. It had a signature. It was Kalen. The name hung in the air between them, thick and unwelcome. Julian flinched, a flicker of something unreadable in his eye sphere, or maybe a shred of ancient guilt. He quickly masked it with bluster. Kalen is broken, he scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. She's living in some synth slum on the lower levels, broken alone. She doesn't have the resources for an attack like this. Then she has found a friend, Serafina said. And you are underestimating her. You always have. You saw her as an engine, a tool to be used. You never respected the mind that built the engine. A mind like that doesn't break. It hardens. It focuses. She is angry, Julian. And a brilliant, angry woman with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous animal on the planet. She set her flute down on her desk, the crystal making a sharp, definitive click. I have locked down the network. Our security AI is performing a full diagnostic sweep. But it's like looking for a single grain of sand on a beach. This person, Kaylin or her new ally, was a ghost. They left no trace. So what do we do? Julian demanded, running a hand through his perfect hair, dislodging a single strand. We do two things, Serafina said, her voice dropping, becoming colder, harder. First, we accelerate the launch of Prometheus. We move it up by 2 weeks. Whatever data she thinks she has will be irrelevant once the system is online and integrated into the city's infrastructure. We will be untouchable. The narrative will be ours to control. And second, Serafina walked to her desk and touched her CUM panel. A man's face appeared on the holographic display. He was severe, scarred, with the dead eyes of a man who has seen and done unspeakable things. Second, she said, her eyes meeting Julian's, we stop looking for a ghost in the machine, and we start hunting a body in the real world. Mr. Corvus, she said to the hologram, I have a name for you. Kaylin Vance. I want you to find her. I want to know where she sleeps, who she talks to, what she eats for breakfast. I want her contained. Quietly, the man Corvus gave a curt nod. Understood, Ms. Dubois. The hologram vanished. Serafina picked up her champagne flute again. The picture of calm. She made a mistake. She showed her hand. Now, we will simply remove the player from the board. She looked at Julian, a thin, humorless smile on her lips. Try not to look so terrified, darling. It's just business. Our new home was a shipping container, number 734, in the forgotten corner of a vast automated freight yard near the western maglev lines. From the outside, it was a rust-streaked metal box among thousands of identical boxes. Inside, Mona had worked her magic. It was cramped, insulated with stolen acoustic foam, and powered by a daisy chain of siphoned energy cells. It smelled of ozone and stale coffee. It was, for now, the safest place in Viridia. She's hunting you, Mona said, her eyes glued to a screen displaying network chatter she'd scraped from Helios Dominion's internal comms. She'd found a new way in, a tiny crack in their public relations server, not for access, but for listening. A corporate security contractor. A real piece of work named Corvus. They're actively looking for you. Not a digital trace. A physical body. I was cleaning a circuit board with a concentration that bordered on religious. My hands were steady, but a cold dread was coiling in my stomach. It was one thing to fight a war in the ether. It was another to be hunted in the flesh. That's Seraphine's move, I said, not looking up. Julian is a bully. She's a predator. Well, a predator just put a bounty on your head. We need to go dark. Truly dark. No more probes. No more listening. We cut all threads and we wait. No, I said, setting the board down. The dread was being consumed by the familiar, cleansing fire of my anger. Waiting is losing. They've moved up the launch date for Prometheus. We have less than 2 weeks. If that system goes fully online, the data I hid on Julian's server becomes meaningless. It's just an accusation against a god. And how do you plan on getting it, Kaylin? Mona shot back, swiveling in her chair to face me. The cramped space made the confrontation feel dangerously intense. You can't go in through the network. Their AI is watching every packet. It's expecting you. And you sure as hell can't. Walk through the front door. They'll have your face flagged at every security checkpoint from the lobby to the damn roof. I know. My mind was racing, sifting through a decade of knowledge, of intimacy with a building that was as much my child as the code that ran it. I saw the blueprints in my head, the schematics, the service corridors, the power conduits. So I won't go in as Kaylin Vance. I began to pace, the 3 steps my cage allowed. They're looking for a hacker, a digital threat. They're hardening their network, but they're creating a blind spot. What blind spot? The physical world, I said. A plan beginning to form. A terrifying, beautiful, insane plan. They expect an attack from the outside. They're not expecting one from within. Not now. They think they've scared the ghost away. I stopped, pacing, and looked at Mona. So, we give them a different kind of ghost. For the next hour, I didn't stop talking. I pulled up the building schematics from a drive I'd backed up years ago. I showed Mona the flaws. Not the digital ones, the physical ones. The ones born of construction compromises and budget cuts. The service elevator shaft that ran parallel to the executive express lift. The ventilation duct on the 40th floor with an acoustic rating just low enough that a careful technician might not be noticed. The centralized catering service that delivered meals to the top floors 3 times a day. They're watching the data streams, but they're not watching the dumbwaiter, I explained, my fingers tracing lines on the holographic schematic, projected from Mona's console. The whole plan is based on one thing: hubris. Julian and Serafina believe they are untouchable in their tower. They think security is about firewalls and biometrics. They've forgotten that a building is just a collection of systems, and every system has a weakness. My strategy was simple and completely insane. I would become the weakness. I started small, a haunting. From a new, deeply anonymized node, I didn't try to breach their security. I just tickled it, using the lowest level of access to the environmental grid. Something so basic it was beneath the notice of the security AI. I started making small changes. I dropped the temperature in the boardroom by 3 degrees right before a major meeting. The change was just enough to be distracting, uncomfortable. A line of code in their quarterly report, projected on the main screen, would corrupt for a single baffling second. A light in Julian's private bathroom would flicker at random, maddening intervals. These were gnats. Annoyances. Ghosts in the machine so subtle they could be dismissed as hardware malfunctions. But they were calculated. Each malfunction I triggered required a physical work order to be logged in the building's maintenance system. A system I could now watch, thanks to Mona's new listening post. "You're poking the bear, Kaylin," Mona warned, though I could see a flicker of admiration in her eyes. "I'm training the bear," I corrected her. "I'm teaching it that the glitches are random, unimportant. I'm creating a pattern of noise so that when I make my real move, it will be lost in that noise." The real move was centered on the penthouse. Julian's safe space, his kingdom. I needed to get in there. I needed to get to his media server. And I had found a way. "The fiber optic network," I said to Mona one night, pointing at a schematic. "The penthouse has a dedicated, shielded fiber line for secure communications. It runs in its own conduit. Straight from the sub-level 3 comes hub. The installation was rushed. Julian wanted it for a demonstration, and the contractor cut corners. The shielding has a documented flaw. At high bandwidth, it emits a low-level magnetic field that interferes with the diagnostic sensors in the adjacent service elevator." "So?" Mona asked. "So every time Julian does a heavy data transfer, the service elevator logs a fault. It's happened 14 times in the last year. Every time, a maintenance tech is dispatched from Viridia Metro services. They run a diagnostic, find nothing. wrong with the elevator and file a report blaming network interference. It's become a routine. Mona's eyes widened as she understood. You're going to trigger the fault. I'm going to use the still compromised power grid controls to surge the penthouse comms line. It will look like Julian is downloading a massive file. It will trigger the elevator fault. A work order will be created, I said, the plan feeling more real, more solid with every word. And you, Mona breathed, are going to be the maintenance tech. It was perfect. It was elegant. It was suicide. The next few days were the most intense of my life. Mona became a master forger. From the bowels of the darknet, she procured a template for a Viridia Metro Services ID, complete with a biosignature spoofer. She got me a uniform, a toolkit, and a set of magnetic keycard cloners. My job was to become the part. I watched hundreds of hours of maintenance tech feeds. I studied how they walked, how they talked, how they held their tools. I learned their slang, their weary indifference. I practiced the walk in our container until Mona said I looked like I'd been doing it for 20 years. I had to become invisible. A person you see but don't register. Part of the background. The paranoia was a physical weight. Every time I left the container for supplies, I felt Corvus's eyes on me. I saw him in the faces of strangers on the maglev platform. I heard his name in whispers on the wind. I started seeing patterns in the flight of birds. Messages in the static between comm channels. Mona had to physically shake me one afternoon when I became convinced a specific cleaning drone was mapping our location. Get it together, Kaylin. She snapped, her voice a splash of cold water. Paranoia is a tool. Don't let it become your master. Stick to the plan. Trust the code. Trust me. She was right. I forced the panic down, compressing it back into that cold, hard diamond of fury. Focus. The night of the planned infiltration arrived. A storm was rolling in over Viridia, the sky a bruised purple. The air was thick with ozone and anticipation. In our container, the silence was absolute. All the preparations were made. Their internal investigation is getting close, Mona said, her voice low. She pointed to her screen. They've scheduled a full hardware scrub of the executive levels, starting tomorrow. That includes the penthouse. If we don't get that data tonight, it's gone forever. This was it. Our one and only chance. I stood before a shard of polished metal we used as a mirror. The woman who stared back was not Kaylin. Vance. Her hair was tucked under a nondescript service cap. The grey VMS uniform hung on my frame, making me look anonymous, tired. My face was pale, my eyes burning with an intensity that was the only recognizable part of me left. Mona handed me an earpiece. I'll be your eyes and ears. I'll monitor their comms and guide you through the security blind spots. But if you get into trouble, if you're compromised, there's no exit plan, Kaylin. I can't get you out. I know, I said. The fear was there, a cold knot in my gut. But the analytical part of my mind, the part that lived and breathed systems and logic, was in control. This was just another problem to be solved, an equation to be balanced. Time to surge the line, Mona said. She typed a command into her console. Miles away, in the sub-basement of the Argent Tower, a power regulator I'd had access to for 5 years diverted a microsurge of energy. It was a tiny blip, imperceptible to the main power grid, that aimed directly at the penthouse fiber line. In Julian's apartment, his network would slow for a moment. He wouldn't even notice. But in the shaft next to the line, a sensor in service elevator C would scream bloody murder. Mona's screen lit up. Work order logged. Service elevator C. Floors 75 to 95. Magnetic field anomaly. It's in the system. They're dispatching a tech. No, I said, picking up my tool bag. They're not. Mona was already at work, intercepting the dispatch order, cloning it, and assigning it to a new fake employee ID, my ID. On the official Viridia Metro Services roster, I now existed. I took a deep breath, the recycled air of the container feeling thin. How do I look? Mona gave me a long, hard look, like you're about to do something incredibly stupid or incredibly brave. She managed a wry smile. Probably both. Good luck, Caleb. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I opened the door of the container and stepped out into the stormy Viridia night. The wind whipped at my uniform. In the distance, the Argent Tower stood like a spear aimed at the heart of the heavens, its peak lost in the turbulent clouds. A monument to their power, a tomb for their secrets. I walked toward the maglev station, just another anonymous worker, heading for a night shift. I didn't look back. My focus was forward. On the tower. On the penthouse. On the ghost I was about to become. I was no longer a hacker hiding behind a screen. I was the flaw in the system, walking in through the front door. And they were the ones who were about to be haunted. The lobby of the Argent Tower was a cathedral of corporate power. Soaring ceilings, floors of polished black marble that reflected the frantic data streams scrolling across the walls, and a low, reverent hush that was more intimidating than any shout. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a wild drumbeat against the calm, tired persona I had to project. The Viridia Metro Services uniform felt like a costume made of sandpaper, irritating and ill-fitting. Every person who glanced at me, the stern-faced security guards in their grey armor, the executives gliding past with an air of detached importance, felt like a potential judge and executioner. Deep breaths. Kaylin, Mona's voice murmured in my earpiece, a tiny anchor in a sea of anxiety. Your biometrics are spiking. Keep it level. You're just a tech here to fix a faulty elevator. You're bored. You're annoyed. You want this shift to be over. I forced myself to adopt the posture I practiced. A slight slump to the shoulders, a weary set to my jaw. I ambled toward the main security desk, my tool bag feeling impossibly heavy. The guard was a mountain of muscle with a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. He didn't look at me. He looked through me. ID, he grunted. His hand out. My fingers felt numb as I pulled the forged card from my pocket. I placed it on the scanner. A green light on the console beside him began to blink as it cross-referenced my forged identity with the work order. The process took less than a second, but it felt like an eternity. I could feel his gaze on my face, comparing it to the picture on the card. I focused on a spot on the wall behind him, affecting an air of bored impatience. Please hold. Please hold. Please hold. Then I saw him. On the far side of the lobby, stepping out of a private elevator, was Corvus, Seraphine's hunter. He was exactly as he'd appeared on the hologram Severe. Scarred, radiating a quiet menace that made the armed guards look like children. He wasn't looking my way. His attention focused on a conversation with another security officer, but his mere presence made the air go thin and cold. My blood turned to ice. Heart rate is critical, Kaylin, Mona warned, her voice sharp and urgent. Breathe. He doesn't know you. You are invisible. The light on the security console turned from blinking to solid green. Approved. Service. Elevator corridor is to your right. Decard 7, the guard grunted, handing my ID back without a second glance. He had already dismissed me. I was furniture. I gave a curt nod and turned away, forcing my legs to move in a steady, unhurried walk. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to flee the tower, but I pushed it down. I could feel Corvus's phantom gaze on my back. I did not look. I just walked toward the corridor, one measured step at a time. The moment I passed through the frosted glass doors into the service area, out of sight of the main lobby, I sagged against a wall, my breath coming in ragged gasps. "That was too close," I whispered. "He's the new head of security," Mona said, her voice grim. "Serafina put him in charge of the whole building after your breach. She's not taking any chances. You need to move. They have patrols, sweeping the service corridors every 20 minutes. The fear was a motivator now. I straightened up and moved with purpose through the sterile, metallic hallways. This was the building's circulatory system, the part the public never saw. I found service elevator C and keyed in my code. The panel slid open, revealing the complex machinery of the lift, and next to it, the shielded conduit carrying the penthouse fiber line. I opened my tool bag and got to work, my earlier anxiety melting away as I focused on the familiar, logical task. This was my world. The diagnostics, the circuitry, the flow of energy. I attached a portable reader to the conduit, my datapad lighting up with information. The magnetic field was fluctuating exactly as I had predicted. I was performing the part of the technician perfectly. "Okay, Mona," I whispered. "I'm at the source of the fault. The schematics show a junction box on the 90th floor. It's the only physical access point to the penthouse line between. Here in the penthouse itself. I'm heading there now." "Be careful," Mona said. "That's executive territory. More sensors, more patrols." I took the service stairs, climbing the last few floors. The air grew colder, more sterile. I emerged into the 90th floor service corridor. It was silent. I found the junction box hidden behind a maintenance panel, but my heart sank. A new lock had been installed. A heavy, magnetic seal with a biometric scanner glowing a soft, menacing red. It wasn't on the schematics. It was brand new. Corvus's work. "Mona, I'm locked out. There's a new maglock. Biometric." There was a pause on the other end. I could hear frantic typing. "I can't bypass it from here," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "It's on a closed circuit. It's not networked. You'd have to clone a biometric signature from an authorized user. And the only authorized users are Julian Croft and Serafina Dubois." I stared at the lock, my mind racing. The plan was dead. I was standing 10 feet from my objective, separated by a wall I couldn't breach. Failure. The thought was a bitter acid in my throat. Then I heard it. A voice. From the other side of the wall. Julian's voice. He was in his penthouse. And he was not alone. "The launch is in 3 days. And you're telling me you can't guarantee the integrity of the system?" He was shouting. His voice was muffled, but the anger was clear. "We can guarantee it," a calmer voice replied. "Serafina, Corvus has locked down every access point. The breach was contained. It was a single desperate act. It will not happen again. They were there. Both of them." My carefully constructed plan, which relied on an empty penthouse, was in ashes. "I have to abort," I whispered to Mona, my hand already moving to pack my tools. "Get out of there, Kaylin, now." But as I began to move, I heard something else. An idea sparked in the technical part of my brain. A desperate, brilliant, and utterly insane gamble. The haunting. I had been training their systems to expect glitches. Perhaps it was time for one more. "Wait," I whispered. "I have another way in." "Kaylin, no!" I ignored her, my fingers flying across the datapad connected to the junction box. I couldn't get through the lock, but I could still interface with the systems inside the wall. I found the fire suppression control for the penthouse, specifically for the media room where the server was located. I couldn't trigger the sprinklers, that would be too destructive, but I could trigger a fault in the pressure sensor of a single sprinkler head. I keyed in the command. A moment later, I heard a new alarm from the other side of the wall. Not a loud one, but a persistent, high-pitched chime. What the hell is that now? Julian roared. Fire suppression fault, Serafina said, her voice cold and clipped. Media room. Probably another one of these damned hardware glitches. Get maintenance up here. I want it fixed. My comm unit chirped. Mona. Kaylin, they just logged a fire suppression fault in the penthouse. They're dispatching a VMS tech. I know, I said, a grim smile on my face. And I'm already on the floor. I rerouted the dispatch order to my own credentials. Tell me the penthouse is empty. Negative. They're both still there. And Corvus is on his way up. He wants to supervise the repair personally. You have to go. It was too late. The door at the end of the service corridor slid open. I had nowhere to run. I pressed myself into an alcove, my heart seizing. A moment later, a penthouse attendant, a young man in a crisp uniform, walked briskly down the hall. He was heading for me. He stopped in front of me, his eyes scanning my uniform. You the VMS tech? I nodded, my throat too dry to speak. Thank God. They're losing their minds in there. The fault is in the media room. This way. He turned and keyed a code into a flush-mounted panel I hadn't seen. A door slid open. The entrance to the penthouse. I was being invited in. It was a perfect trap, and I was walking straight into it. As I stepped over the threshold, I saw Corvus step out of the executive elevator down the hall. He saw me. His eyes narrowed for a fraction of a second. He knew something was wrong. The penthouse was an opulent prison of glass and chrome. The media room was to the left. Julian was standing there, his arms crossed, glaring at a small, flashing red light on the ceiling. Serafina stood by the window, a statue of icy calm. Took you long enough. Julian snapped at me. I ignored him, walking directly to the sprinkler head, my tool bag in hand. I had to play the part. My mind was a whirlwind. Corvus was coming. I had minutes, maybe seconds. What's the problem? Julian demanded, stepping closer. I didn't look at him. I looked at the media server rack against the far wall. The prize. So close. Pressure sensor malfunction, sir. I just need to run a diagnostic. I placed my tool bag on the floor and opened it. My datapad was inside, already queued up. But as I reached for it, Julian grabbed my arm. His grip was surprisingly strong. I know you, he said, his voice a low, dangerous whisper. He peered at my face, under the brim of the service cap. His eyes widened, first in disbelief, then in a flash of pure, venomous rage. You. The word was a gunshot in the silent room. Serafina turned from the window, her placid mask finally breaking into a look of genuine surprise, quickly replaced by a cold, triumphant smile. The game was over. Kaylin, she said, her voice dripping with mock admiration. I have to admit, I'm impressed. Julian shoved me backwards. I stumbled, catching myself before I fell. The service cap fell off, my dark hair spilling loose. The disguise was gone. I was exposed. What are you doing here? Julian snarled, advancing on me. How did you get in here? You left a door open, I said, my voice shaking but steady. The cold fury was back. a sheet of ice over my fear. You always do. The door to the penthouse slid open. Corvus stood there, a weapon drawn. He didn't look surprised. He looked lethal. It seems the ghost has a body after all, Serafina purred. She gestured to Corvus. Detain her. They had me. Cornered, no escape. Julian was smiling now, a cruel, vicious smirk. I told you, Serafina. She's nothing, a coder. What did you think you were going to accomplish, Kaelin? Walk out of here with a server under your arm. He laughed. It's over. You're right, I said, my eyes locking with his. And not walking out of here with the server. My hand, hidden from their view behind my back, closed around the device I palmed from my toolkit. A high-capacity data spike. While Julian had been monologuing, my other hand had been busy inside the open tool bag, my fingers flying across the datapad screen. I'm not here to steal the hardware, I said, taking a step toward the media server. Corvus raised his weapon. I'm here for a backup. I lunged not away, but toward the server. Corvus yelled. Julian flinched back. In the split second of their surprise, I slammed the data spike into a port on the server. The download began. Instantly. A terabyte of data. Far too much. It would take minutes. I only had seconds, but I wasn't downloading it to the spike. The spike was a key. The moment it made contact, it sent a single encrypted packet into the server. A command I had written years ago. A command that didn't pull data out. It pushed data in. The data I had hidden. The folder detailing the horrific truth of Prometheus. It was now copying itself, replicating, embedding itself into the core operating system of every single device connected to the Penthouse network. Not just hiding. Integrating. Becoming part of the system itself. A poison pill. The progress bar on my wrist-mounted display filled in 3 seconds. It was done. Corvus was on me, grabbing me, spinning me around and slamming me against the wall. The air rushed out of my lungs. Julian stood over me, his face contorted with fury. You crazy bitch, what did you do? I just gave myself a voice, I gasped, a real, triumphant smile spreading across my face. Inside every system in this building, Seraphine's eyes were wide with dawning horror. She understood. She understood what I'd done far better than Julian did. She's turned the whole network into a dead man's switch. Precisely, Mona's voice said. Not in my earpiece. It came from every speaker in the penthouse simultaneously. The televisions, the comm panels, Julian's desktop computer. My associate's biometric signature is currently linked to a global broadcast protocol. If her vital signs cease or even fall below a certain threshold, the entire unedited Prometheus data package, along with 5 years of Mr. Croft's creative accounting, goes public to every news agency, law enforcement branch, and market watchdog on the planet. Mona paused. Her voice was cold, cheerful. So, I'd advise your man to be very, very gentle with her. Checkmate. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by my ragged breathing. Corvus's grip loosened slightly. Julian stared at the speakers, then at me, his face a mask of disbelief and impotent rage. Serafina was the first to recover. The horror receded, replaced by the cool calculation of a predator assessing a new threat. She looked at me, really looked at me with something that resembled respect. What do you want, Kaelin? She asked, her voice even. I want to walk out of this building, unharmed. With the original data drive containing your little conspiracy, I said, nodding toward the server. And you are going to let me, because the alternative is that your 100 billion credit investment in Prometheus becomes the most expensive public confession in corporate history. You think I'll just let you walk away with my company's future? Serafina challenged, taking a step forward. No, I said, meeting her gaze. Our company. You just stole it. And I'm not taking its future. I'm taking its past. The part that belongs to me. I allowed myself a small, cold smile. And I'm going to make sure that its future is one you never, ever get to see. I held her gaze. A battle of wills fought in the space between heartbeats. Julian was sputtering, looking back and forth between us, completely out of his depth. This was between me and her. The architect and the financier. The ghost and the queen. Finally, with an almost imperceptible nod, she conceded. She looked at Corvus. Let her go. The walk out of the Argent Tower was the longest of my life. Corvus escorted me, his hand never far from his weapon, his expression a mask of controlled fury. Serafina and Julian watched from the penthouse doorway. As I retrieved the small, solid-state drive from the server, the original copy of All Their Sins. No one spoke. The lobby was as quiet as when I entered. The mountain of a guard at the front desk watched me leave, his face impassive. I stepped out into the stormy night. The wind and rain a welcome shock to my system. The air of Viridia had never tasted. So sweet. Mona had a vehicle waiting a block away. I got in, and we drove, melting into the city's neon-streaked arteries. I didn't look back. The next morning, the world broke. We watched from the safety of the container as every news feed in the city exploded. The Helios Dominion scandal was a firestorm. The financial crimes were the headline, but the Prometheus data was the real story. The revelation of a plan for citywide surveillance and social control ignited a wave of public fury and political panic I could never have imagined. The Argent Tower was besieged by reporters. Stock in Helios Dominion ceased to exist. Julian Croft was arrested live on camera, trying to flee his penthouse. His face was a mask of pathetic, sputtering disbelief. He looked small, insignificant. Serafina was never charged. Her name was mentioned, but she was insulated by layers of lawyers and plausible deniability. Her empire was wounded, crippled, but not destroyed. She vanished from the public eye, but I knew she was out there, watching, waiting. Some games don't have a final move. A week later, Mona and I stood in the old pump house. It was just as we'd left it, a dusty, silent monument to our victory. The city had already reclaimed the Prometheus code, making it open source, handing it to a public trust to be redeveloped for civic good, not for control. My work was mine again. It belonged to everyone. So what now, Ghost? Mona asked, sipping from her thermal flask. I looked out the broken window at the Viridia skyline. The Argent Tower still stood, but it seemed smaller now. Just another building among many. The cold fury that had been my fuel for so long was gone. In its place was a vast, quiet emptiness. A silence that wasn't about hiding or power, but about the space after a long and terrible war. I don't know, I said honestly. I haven't thought that far ahead. I had won. I had burned their kingdom to the ground. But I was still Kaylin Vance, a woman standing in a derelict building, with nothing to her name but a brilliant mind and a future as blank as an unformatted drive. For the first time in a long time, that felt less like a problem and more like a beginning.